Hello everyone, Vulcan here, and with this video I want to talk about Jaune for a bit, touching on what could possibly make him special and what his semblance may or may not be. This week we've had what was arguably the best fight in the entire volume. One thing that stood out to me though was Tyrion's interest in Jaune, which now makes two characters that have openly stated or at least suggested that Jaune has immense potential. Of course the first person was Pyrrha all the way back in volume 1. This is especially interesting to me because Tyrion showed no special interest toward Ruby despite the fact that he'd been sent to capture her, presumably due to her silver eyes which pose a threat to Cinder of course, and possibly Salem as well. For more information on that, do check out my video on Silver Eyes. I put a link down in the description below for your approval. Now, since early in the series, we've had multiple instances which hinted at Jaune having massive untapped potential, the likes of which haven't been suggested with any other character. It was only when Ruby used the powers of her Silver Eyes that we discovered about Ruby having a special trait that makes her stand out from everyone else. That raises a question of Jaune. What about him? What makes him special? So in my review of episode 6, I talk about the possibility of him coming from a lineage associated with a currently untold legend in Remnant. And it's already known, of course, that Jaune comes from a family of heroes, so what I'm going to do in this video is expanding a little bit on that and also talk about what his semblance could actually be. So like I said in my review, there are many stories, legends, and myths in the world of Remnant. Pyrrha mentioned a few in volume 3, but we only know of one in detail. That's, of course, the story of the Four Maidens. We also know that the Silver-Eyed Warriors are stuff of legend that's evidently based on truth given that Ruby and Summer both have or had silver eyes. It's been hinted in episode 1 of volume 4 that there are others, or at least there were others, given that both Hazel and evil Obi-Wan have talked about having dealt with their kind before. So the chances that Jaune and his family come from a legendary lineage isn't impossible to me, considering the Arc family are confirmed to come from a line of heroes. For that reason, I think there's more to Jaune than simply having a very strong aura, although that's certainly part of it. But I think he also possesses a special trait of some kind. What that trait could be is anyone's guess at this point in time, given how little we know about the world of Remnant. Perhaps Rooster Teeth should talk more about these legends in the World of Remnant episodes instead of making 2 to 3 minute videos talking about what's already shown in the full episodes, but I digress. There's reason to think that it may have to do with his semblance, whatever that may be, as aura and semblance are often tied together. The best example I can think of which shows how aura and semblance are connected is Yang. How powerful Yang's semblance is directly related to how much aura she has. Yang is the very definition of a damage soaker. The more damage she takes, the stronger she becomes, and even more so if she's angry. There were only 2 occasions where Yang's aura was bypassed before her semblance could take effect. The most recent example, of course, was her confrontation with Adam. Although her semblance was activated, it was due to her rage rather than how much damage she took. There's little reason to think Yang had taken any significant damage before then, so her aura still had to have been in very good shape. Despite that, Adam cut right through her aura, allowing him to slice off her arm. The other example would be her fight with Neo, although unlike Adam, Neo hadn't dealt a massive amount of damage in one blow. Rather, she dealt damage over a series of multiple hits. To me, that's actually kind of strange, considering that it would make more sense for Yang to have accumulated enough damage during that fight to let her semblance become stronger. However, I'm not going to be expanding on that, as that's not what I'm here for right now. Now, I want to touch on Jaune's semblance and what it could possibly be. One of the writers of the show, I can't remember if it was Miles or Monty himself, said that we've already seen Jaune's semblance as far back as volume 1. From what I understood, it was at the moment when Karn was about to punch Jaune during the episode Jaundice and his aura suddenly flared, which completely blocked Karn's attack. As a result of this, I think many people speculated that Jaune's semblance is a type of metaphysical armor. You could liken it to the way Nen works in Hunter x Hunter, in the way that aura can be used for defense. Such a semblance I think would make sense for Jaune because his sword and shield weaponry suggests that he's a defensive fighter and acts as a tank in his team. However, the counter-argument to that is that aura is generally a defensive tool for everyone. Not long before the incident with Carden, we'd already seen someone else use aura directly in a defensive manner. Of course, that was Ren when he fought the King Taijitu. While 2 people can have similar semblances, as is shown with Blake, Sun, and Flint, all having the ability to produce copies of themselves, the context here is also very important. When Ren was shown defending himself from the King Taijitu, Pyrrha was explaining to Jaune what aura is. So within that context, I think it's more sensible to presume that Ren's defense was his use of aura rather than his semblance. It's also a well-known fact at this point that aura protects hunters from sustaining bodily harm, as was demonstrated multiple times throughout Volume 3. So like Jaune said, aura is like a force field. So that leads to the question, if Jaune's semblance isn't an invisible armor, what could it then be? To determine that, I want to consider what Jaune's position could potentially be within his team. Given his weaponry, it makes sense to me that Jaune would act as the vanguard, much like Pyrrha would. In classic warfare, sword and shield fighters were often placed in the front lines. This was common for the Roman Empire, for the Spartans, and many other major historical cultures. Soldiers who used such weaponry were often made to work in tandem with each other as well. Individually, they were very strong fighters, but working within a unit is where they truly shined. Given Jaune's placement as vanguard, along with the fact that he is the leader of his team, it's possible to me that Jaune's semblance may have something to do with protecting not only himself, but others as well. Given how far forward the writers of the show have planned, it's safe to say that they're also familiar with the semblances of the characters who haven't yet shown them. Characters like Ren, Mercury, and indeed Jaune. At least not extensively anyways. Incidentally, Jaune's special abilities in the game Grim Eclipse are all about empowering the rest of the team. His ultimate attack can either give other players a strength boost, a speed boost, or heal them, although the latter two are completely useless, but again, I digress. I would very often argue that developers of Grim Eclipse would never actually let anyone whose semblance isn't known use abilities that allude to what their semblance is. However, it's worth noting that Team Juniper was included in the game long after Rooster Teeth became more heavily involved in its development. Jaune's skills may just be placeholders or created specifically for the game because no one can tell us, the audience, what his semblance really is, but it's possible that the game is giving us a huge hint here. Furthermore, it's also worth noting that Jaune is of course based on Joan of Arc, a famous historical figure known for leading the French army to victory against the English during the 15th century. As far as I know, and of course correct me if I'm wrong given because I'm not too familiar with this part of history, but Joan of Arc was also very influential in the war against the English during her time, as well as French society as a whole. It wouldn't therefore surprise me if Jaune's semblance would have something to do with empowering others in some shape or form. There are of course other possibilities because, like I said, what Jaune's semblance is anyone's guess at this stage. Whatever the case may be, seeing Jaune develop both as a fighter as he discovers his special skill and as a character will be a very exciting thing to see in the coming volumes. So that's all I wanted to say regarding Jaune as of this episode. One thing I want to point out is that I'm not completely certain how much RWBY content I'll be able to put out given that we're coming up to the Christmas period. To begin with, there's a strong chance that RWBY's going on hiatus and we're not going to be getting another episode until sometime next month. More importantly, I'm going back home to Italy for 3 weeks, give or take, this weekend. During that time, I think I'll be posting more vlog type videos, but I'll certainly be trying to come up with various theories about RWBY, like with this video. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and as always, let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. Like the video if you did, and subscribe to my channel because I really appreciate it, and hopefully I will see you soon.